Superman number 13, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Kenneth Rockefort. This is a prelude to Hell on Earth. What does that mean? I don't know. It barely relates. So, this issue opens up with Superman working out at a place called The Block, which is basically a science lab in the center of the Earth run by someone named Dr. Veritas. I think we've met this person before. They sound very familiar, but unfortunately not quite clicking for me. But anyway, basically has literally the entire weight of the world via one of these machines. And she's like, yeah, no, Superman, you are literally able to do this barely breaking a sweat. And you've been at it for 5 days now, so maybe call it quits. And he's like, all right, well, thanks for the help. I really do rely on you. You're a very good person and all. And thanks for not letting my secret out. And she's like, yeah, hey. And by the way, I just need to borrow a tiny little bit of your sweat. And he's like, you kidding me? I'm sweating? That's great. I've never sweat before. So she takes a bit of his sweat. He gives her a hug. And then he's like, oh, yeah, I've been down in the center of the earth for 5 days. I could probably use some sunlight. So he flies up to the surface of the sun. And he's like, boy, all right. Wish I could hang out up here, but unfortunately I got to get back to Clark Kent lifestyle. So he flies back into his apartment and he's like, all right, I got 6 seconds to shave, take a shower, do all that stuff. And so he goes into the shower and inside is Jimmy Olsen getting clean with a woman in there. It doesn't come back. Like, it doesn't relate to anything. We just had to see that Jimmy was getting lucky. So Clark then grabs all of his clothes and rushes out to Daily Planet, where he gets chewed out by Perry because he hasn't done anything all week. And Clark's like, hey, you want me on the Superman beat, but sometimes Superman just disappears for a week. I don't know what you want me to do in that case. He's like, then do something, literally anything. Like, you have to do your job, Clark. And Lois is in the room as well, and she starts chewing him out as well. But before she can really get too into it, where Clark is like starting to fight back against her, she gets a text message and Clark x-ray visions it and sees that it's from a guy named Jonathan saying, hey, I'm so happy that we're moving in together. And she's like, so am I, LOL. And then Clark leaves all dejectedly and sad. And he's like, man, do I still like Lois? I feel like something would have happened there. Also, in Justice League number 12, I made out with Wonder Woman, so maybe I've moved on. I don't know. But at this point, Morgan Edge comes up to his computer and he's like, hey, Clark, I talked to the IT guys, and it turns out that you, my Superman guy, has been searching for things like, oh, I don't know, housing violations and the plights of the poor. So maybe don't do that. And he says it much more angrily than that, and basically tells him, like, look, do your job or you're fired. And Clark then does the whole thing. He takes off his glasses, which, mind you, he takes off his glasses and he literally starts making a speech in the center of the bullpen being like, now you listen here, Mr. Edge. I believe in journalistic integrity. I don't believe in just pumping out whatever pop news you think people want to hear. We are here for the news, god damn it. And we're here for truth and justice, and dare I say the American way. Who's with me? And everyone else in the office is just like, oh, hey, look over there. There's some things going on. And so Morgan Edge does just straight up fire him. So then we see some time passes, and he's actually talking to Cat Grant, who is like, no, like, I followed up right up after you. I told him, like, hey, if you want some stupid blonde to cover the gossip rags, you're going to have to find someone better than me. And he's like, thank you, Kat. I think that's helpful. But before he can get too much into it, he hears a giant beast moving through Metropolis. And he looks up and sees in between the skyscrapers this like dragon head moving through. So he immediately goes Superman and he's like, well, guess I got to deal with this before I deal with Clark Kent's personal life. But then we see the little dragon head is actually just the toe, which is a dragon head, of a much larger dragon that is like at least 3 times the size of any skyscraper in Metropolis. And he's like, okay, all right, this is new. So he goes up and he knocks out the head, just one punches it. It goes down, but then he's immediately attacked by all the like claws and toes of this dragon that are, again, themselves dragon heads. And one of them knocks him with his tail, which knocks him the entire way over to Ireland. So that happened. and he meets up with some miners that he just like crashed into the rig of, and he's like, "Hey everybody, there's a dragon coming. I'm going to use my super breath to blow you all to safety." And then he did. And then the dragon just shows up, and he's literally got a thing here saying, "I've got about 2 minutes before the dragon shows up." And then it's just right there. So I don't know why he thought he had 2 minutes, but regardless, dragon grabs him up. He's trying to like view it on a molecular level to see if there's any weak spots, but he's not quite sure if he can find any, but he sees that its DNA is literally decaying. So he just looks down. The miners were drilling for oil. He lights it up with his heat vision. Giant explosion. And the dragon is seemingly incinerated. So he's like, all right, cool. Glad I managed to take care of that. But then when he looks up in the midst of the explosion, he sees Supergirl, his cousin. And the cousin's like, hey, you lied to me. And Superman's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, and we're literally like, today's the worst day for you to do this. And she's like, shut up, you don't get to talk to me. You said that we were the last 2 survivors from Krypton, but that giant dragon thing, don't tell me that you didn't recognize it as a tripedal curiosianian. I'm genuinely trying with that name, which is apparently a prehistoric animal indigenous to Krypton. So Krypton must still be alive. And then there's literally a narration box here saying, impossibly, neither Cal nor his cousin recognizes that there is someone else literally hovering over them like 10 feet away. And it's hell. I'm just going to skip that. It's hell. It's the guy that is the event. This is why it's a prelude. Okay. A lot going on in this issue. Gonna preface it with the art is fantastic. Kenneth Rocafort is always great. Looks great the whole way through. My only real critique here is kind of like the whole middle bit, and honestly a bit at the beginning. It's pretty much everything right up until the dragon shows up, because it is, I don't want to say out of character for Clark, because he has always had, like, when he's Clark, he's really had this like real journalistic bent of like, no, we got to do the real news, and that's been something since the beginning of Superman. I'm fine with that, but it's more so of like, he literally took off his glasses and made a Superman speech in the middle of this bullpen and nobody noticed. And then there was just, I don't know. Everything just felt very disjointed. Like, none of it was really relating to each other. It was just kind of like, okay, no, we're just generally showing what Clark's doing in his life. Like, remember Jimmy Olsen's getting laid? You do now. So, yeah, it's collectively as a whole issue, it's a little bit haphazard, but the art is fantastic, and I really do like that last bit. Even if I'm just like, this dragon's breaking the laws of nature. Sure, it's Kryptonian, but like, a thing that size cannot just show up and Superman doesn't notice. Like, that's, then again, they're not noticing a Kryptonian literally 10 feet above their head. So, hey, maybe Superman's just an idiot now. Overall, it's a 7. Most of that is the art, but it is a rocky start to the event because I don't really feel like I have any clue as to what's going on yet. So we'll see what happens next time. I believe in Superboy or Supergirl number 14.